Hello children, welcome to our next class in Supplementary Reader. Today I have taken the lesson Comet Part 1. So as usual, before we begin the lesson, let's have a small view about the author's life. So the author of this lesson is Jayant Vishnu Narlikar, who is an Indian astrophysicist and emeritus professor at the Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics. He was born on 19 July 1938. He has been awarded with many awards such as the Adams Prize, Padma Vibhushan, Prix Jules Janssen Award and Padma Bhushan. This lesson revolves around the character of Manoj Datta, who has a lifetime dream of discovering a comet, and he discovers a comet as well. But the problems which get associated with the discovery of the comet and how an international conference solves his problem. So let's get started with the story. It was a moonless night in December. A cool breeze from the window disturbed the sleep of Indrani Devi. She was the wife of an amateur scientist. Children, here amateur means person who's learning a trade, a student, a trainee. So Datta is not a scientist. His full name is actually Manoj Datta, but throughout this lesson he will be addressed as Datta. So it was his wife who was sleeping on the cot when cool air disturbs the sleep of Indrani Devi. She touches the pillow next to her, and then she comes to know that Datta, her husband, was not there. Indrani Devi knew very well that at this time of midnight, Datta might be busy observing the stars through his telescope called Divya Chakshu. He did not bother even to close the door, nor did he put on a sweater to protect himself against the cold. From this we come to know that Datta had a telescope, and this telescope's name is Divya Chakshu. Now Divya Chakshu is a Hindi word which means divine eye. Now Datta was an old man, and observing the stars at night, it was not good for his health. Although Indrani Devi had kept a sweater near his bed so that even if he wants to go out, he can just put on a sweater and go to the terrace to watch the stars. But as Datta was so interested in observing the stars that he always forgets to put on his sweater. This forgetfulness of Datta always annoys Indrani Devi. But through this forgetfulness, Indrani Devi says that how can Datta remember anything when Divya Chakshu had cast a magical spell on Datta? Because to Indrani Devi, Divya was not an instrument. It was not a telescope alone. It was a designing woman who had snatched her husband away from her because Manoj Datta was spending much of his time looking into the eyes of Divya Chakshu rather than spending time with her. Indrani Devi is annoyed and angered, and so she puts on a shawl around herself, picks up Datta's sweater and goes to the terrace. Indrani Devi found Datta looking through his telescope. At this time, Datta had a lifelong ambition to discover a comet, and this gets fulfilled when after retirement he gets enough money to buy a telescope. He also had enough spare time to observe the stars. After his retirement, there was not much of a work for him to do. Now Datta spent long nights observing the stars, trying to study their behavior and motion. Throughout his life, Datta had a secret ambition, and that ambition was to discover a comet. Children, before I move on with the story, let me explain what comets are. A comet is an icy object of gas, dust and stone which is there in our solar system, but it is neither a planet nor a dwarf planet, nor is it a natural satellite. But due to certain gravitational pull, it tries to come close to the sun, and as it comes close to the sun, it gets warm. Earlier it was icy, but now when it gets warm, this produces a visible structure to it. So comets are also a part of our solar system, and comets, like planets, revolve around the sun. So, but the revolution which a comet does is only for a limited period of time. After a few revolutions around the sun, it gets pulled by another planet's gravitational pull or by a distant planet or star, and then it moves away to that direction. Whereas the planets of our solar system, they move only around the sun. One more difference between a planet and a comet is that a planet moves in a fixed path, whereas the path of comet is really very strange. It may move in any manner. Just like in this black color background diagram picture, you can see the maroon color lines are the path of the planets of our solar system, whereas the green, the red and the blue colors line oval shapes which you see, these are the path of the comet. Just once in a year they come around the sun, have a few revolutions, and then they move away from our solar system. Although Datta was not a well-known famous scientist who has devoted his life to study the motions of planets and of stars and comets, but Datta was a very optimistic person. He was optimistic that one day he is going to discover a comet. Professional astronomers are more interested in studying about different galaxies, and in fact many of the comets were discovered by amateurs. Datta knew in his heart that this night was going to be a very special night. The reason was that he had seen something faint behind the same old stars. So he had seen that something is about to enter into the solar system. He made some calculations on his calculator and there was no mistake. Finally, he had discovered a new comet. News about Datta's discovery gets published in the newspaper called Anand Bazar Patrika, and it reported that a Calcutta man discovered a new comet. Actually, Datta had informed this to Indian Institute of Astrophysics, Bangalore, about his location. Datta also claimed he was sure that the comet could clearly be seen in the next few months. He used his 8-inch telescope Dibya Chakshu to make this discovery. After he had given all his calculations and all his photographs to the Indian Institute of Astrophysics, the institute also confirmed that it was really a comet which was going to appear in our solar system very soon. And so the IIA, that is the Indian Institute of Astrophysics, called this comet as Comet Datta. Now here rises the problems one after the other for Datta. Datta was an introvert man. Now what is the meaning of introvert? An introvert person is someone who is very shy and quiet, prefers to spend much of his time alone. Now Datta was also very disgusted, not because he had discovered the comet, but because now his private life has become very public. After the discovery of the comet, he was invited in many receptions and functions, and he was asked to give lectures and talk to students. So his private life had become public. Many people wanted to know more about Datta. Now Indrani Devi also agreed, and she wished that Datta had not discovered the comet. Indrani Devi said that comets bring bad luck. And so she did not want her husband to be associated with something which brings bad luck. And this discovery of comet is going to give a bad luck not only in the life of Datta, but also it is going to bring a bad luck into the life of the family. So Datta was surprised at her superstitious belief. He was not able to understand why, in spite of being such an educated lady, she believed in old rituals and orthodox belief. And so he said that the arrival of comet has nothing to do with the devastations or destructions on the earth. Just like stars, the comets also come and be in the solar system for some time, and then they go away without causing any harm to anybody. But this time, even Datta could not have predicted something which was about to happen. So the scene cuts from Calcutta, and we are told that there is a spacious dining hall in the King's College, Cambridge. A butler had an envelope and he says something very softly into the ears of the provost. Now, who is the provost? Provost is the head of a college and gives him a cover. The head of the department then calls James, who is the professor of astronomy in King's College. He gives the envelope to James Forsyth and tells that James is urgently required in London. James Forsyth was totally surprised. So he opens the envelope, and to his surprise, there was a small note in it, a small letter. And in that letter, somebody called John McPherson had written that the bearer of this letter, that is, the person who has brought this letter, has been instructed to bring James Forsyth to London, and John McPherson, that is the person who has written this letter, he has made all the arrangement of his stay. While James is coming to London, he should not say anyone anything about where he is going and why is he going. From the signature in the letter, James concluded that this letter was sent by the defense science advisor of the Queen's government, and this person is a man whose orders cannot be disobeyed. So as James moved on to his sitting room, he is greeted by a man called Mr. Johnson, who is the security officer at Whitehall. He showed his identity and he told James that he can understand that James must be under tremendous pressure because he did not know why he is been called by the senior science advisor. Johnson then drives James to London in his car, and both of them soon reach to the Whitehall. From there, they go to the office of Sir John McPherson. Johnson introduces James to Sir John and then goes out of there. Sir John, without giving any more explanation, just hands over a typed script to James Forsyth. This paper was meant to be published in a weekly, that is which was published in London every week, and the name of the magazine was Nature. James was surprised to see how this original typed copy, from where had it come to Sir John, because this typed copy had given it to the editor of the Nature so that that editor can publish it in his newspaper. Sir John tells that Taylor, the editor of the magazine Nature, is his friend, and it was Taylor who had read this article, and before publishing it, he wanted to confirm it with Sir John whether this article should be published. Something which was very shocking in the article which was given, something very shocking in that typed paper. It was all about Comet Datta. And when Taylor had asked Sir John whether he can publish in the weekly journal of science, then Sir John had asked Taylor not to publish it, because if the paper gets published and people come to know about a devastation or destruction which is going to happen because of a comet which is going to dash on the earth, then many people may die out of fear or shock. So it was very necessary to stop the publication of that paper. Hearing all this, James said that he wanted this to be published without delay because it was the right of every person on the earth to know what is going to happen. In the typed copy, James had predicted that Comet Datta would collide, that is, dash with the earth. This would bring a great devastation, catastrophe on the earth. Many living things will die. Much part of the earth will vanish like a water vapor. James also told Sir John that he had made his calculations very carefully, and except a few circumstances, a collision is to take place. But Sir John asked what those circumstances were. Now Sir John was interested in knowing under which rare circumstances can Comet Datta not collide with the Earth. For this, James said that as the comet is moving, it may get attracted by the gravity of an asteroid. It may hit that asteroid in place of Earth, but if we see the position, it was not possible. Second thing is that since it is moving in such a great speed, it may break up into smaller pieces, and before it could reach the sun or the Earth, it may evaporate like gas. But those chances are very rare. That chances of the comet Datta hitting the Earth was 10% because he had made the calculations and again and again. To this, Sir John says that since there are exceptions, since there are chances that comet Datta may not collide, may not hit Earth, so it was very necessary for the paper to be stopped from publishing in Nature. And Sir John also promised that he is going to stop Comet Datta from hitting the Earth. And to stop Comet Datta, they had just 10 months of time. Chances are that they may become successful and they may change the path of the comet, or if whatever they are thinking doesn't happen, then catastrophe is bound to happen. But James did not know how they could stop a natural catastrophe. Nobody has ever done anything to stop the path of a comet. And how were they going to do it? To this, Sir John suggested that they should call a meeting of all the experts in all the fields. Everyone should be called to this meeting, and this meeting should be held in total secrecy. And in the meeting, they can come out with a solution to stop this problem. James was still not sure how John is going to do all these things, but still he said that even if I stop my paper from getting published, there are other scientists around the world who by this time would have known that Comet Datta is going to hit Earth. And how is John going to stop those scientists from publishing their theory about Comet Datta? To this, John is going to contact his friends in other countries, and those friends are going to use all their resources to stop the publication of any of the article which showed that Comet Datta is going to bring devastations or destructions on Earth. This news will be kept under secrecy till the comet passes the atmosphere of the Earth. So Sir John is still hopeful that he can change the path of the comet and make it not collide with the Earth. Children, with that I conclude this lesson. There is part 2 coming up, which has the concluding part of this lesson.